Welcome to another Quantum Conversation, brought to you by AcousticHealth.com. I'm Loren Gailey, and I invite you to sit back as we enter the quantum realm, that space of the greater part of you. It is your connection to infinite possibilities, infinite potential, and infinite mastery. We are talking about mastery and our sovereignty in today's call as we access the portals of liberation where we can become one with universal source consciousness. My guest today is Akasha Sananda, and he is going to talk with us about getting out of our karmic reincarnation cycle and evolving to immortality. Akasha has been initiated by the Himalayan Masters of immortality, including Babaji and others. And he's here with us today to share his wisdom on the self-realization of avatar consciousness. Akasha, thank you so much. Welcome to Quantum Conversations.
Thank you, Loren. It's an absolute honor to be joining you and sharing this beautiful presence.
Yes, we can already feel these energies, and we can feel the presence of the great immortal masters who surround you and who work with you. Before we start, let's have you cite an invocation so we can connect to this God source.
Absolutely. So just take a moment just to connect into your heart center and just state within yourself, you declare to connect and serve through that connection to your God source, making it your intention to commit to serve in your full divine power, absolutely, unconditionally, and completely. And repeating, I am whole, I am sovereign, and I am free.
That will be repeated. I am whole, I am sovereign, I am free. Beautiful. Well, thank you for this connection deep within inside ourselves, and for sharing your wisdom on today's show. We're going to talk about the portals of liberation and how we can evolve out of karmic reincarnation cycles. We're going to find out how it is we identify what those karmic reincarnation cycles are or karmic ties are. But first, I would like you to share about your mentorship with Babaji. Many know Babaji as the great immortal being who ascended himself, and he's still around working with the consciousness of this planet. Can you share that story of how you were initiated by him, how you met him, how you came to work with him?
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to, first of all, honor the divine presence in which we all abide within, and Babaji being one of the supreme masters that has literally manifested and materialized himself into that ever-evading presence, and just really appreciating him as the truth seer, and that he is as one with us all when we are in truth one in him. And there is no separation to this connection. So my journey began very much like us all, on the path of initiation. And through that path of initiation there came a lot of surrendering. Surrendering to the old aspects of oneself, surrendering to all the old ideas of who we thought we were and who we were programmed to believe we were or could potentially be from these aspects of the matrix, what I like to call the matrix. And where my journey began was literally letting all that go and selling and releasing all all pretty much possession that I had, and I was guided to travel on the other side of the world. And there's this higher guidance came, and this being was communicating to me, and I had no idea who it truly was. And it was just this internal voice that was speaking to, and it was literally I felt my higher self that was communicating to me to let go of the old aspects and just journey and just go. So this led me on a deep path of a pilgrimage, in fact, of initiation, and it led me into the Amazon jungle. And then from that place I was literally met with a spiritual family, and one member of that spiritual family actually invited me to go to America. So after I went through my journey and travels in the Peruvian Amazon and through the Central Americas, I made my way out to America, and I met an elder wisdom keeper, an elder grandmother, and she held the wisdom of the white buffalo people. And she was a direct descendant of not only the white buffalo people, but she also had a connection to the Himalayan Rishis. And she told me of the ancient stories where the Rishis actually came, and the great yogis of the East came and started teaching a lot of ancient principles and teachings of healing, and also other spiritual practices from the East many thousands of years ago. And this really excited me, because of myself I have indigenous connections to the Ngarrindjeri people of the Aborigines of Australia, the whale people, the whale dreaming. And so I had this ever obvious and present connection to indigenous cultures. And so along this initiation with this elder grandmother, she told me that a being will further initiate me on this path of what she called Kriya Yoga. And this Kriya Yoga was literally the middle path, the middle way of utilizing not just meditative practices, but actually a primal energy, this primordial energy that's living inside of us. Science would call this energy 0 point, and or vacuumed energy. So she taught me how to unlock that energy inside myself, and she was a phenomenal being with tremendous healing abilities, literally being able to raise people from the dead. She was literally a phenomenal being, and still is a phenomenal being. And after my many years being taught from it was many months, and it's been years since I've still been in contact, and she literally is a very familiar presence and a family member of my spiritual tribe. I was then told to leave and travel into a very ancient jungle in Malaysia, and there's a sacred temple, and it was an underground temple in Malaysia that actually was on sacred land that was known as in the ancient times of Tamil Nadu. And Tamil Nadu was a place that stretched up into Sri Lanka and up into India, and was this massive, large body of lands that literally connected India all the way through Indonesia's and Malaysia, our country. And this was also known as the coastal region of Lemuria. And underground, it was quite amazing, because when I went to this land, it was so ancient, so pure, that it started sparking all these different memories. And where I had the honour to reside was near this crystal cave. And underground there is still this 3-leveled golden temple. And it's very ancient. It's around 36,000 years old, and obviously that it hasn't risen, and it hasn't risen for a reason. It's risen in parts. There's been parts and chambers of this temple that have risen to the surface, but it has been covered up because of the governmental influences of that country. owned basically all the land, and when such a temple could be unveiled, it could be defaced because of the certain religious, political aspects within that country. So anyway, it's been undercover, it's been veiled basically, and I had the honour to spend a lot of time there. And as I was spending time in this crystal cave and in this residence, there was ancient sage, also named Rishis, that lived underneath this literal golden temple, that would start coming to me and start materializing and communicating to me. And they started taking me deeper to this Kriya pathway, and they started preparing me for a death rebirth process. And I didn't really know who they were. I didn't really know. I had a feeling they would communicate to me more telepathic, but I had a feeling of an ancient friendship, of a past life connection to these beings, but I didn't fully know who they truly were. And there were 7 different beings that would come to me, and some would tell me who they were, and some wouldn't. It wouldn't be necessary. But it came to a point when it was the Shivaratri, which is literally the new moon, or it's the 13th waning of the moon cycle in the new year. And in 2014, I had a direct experience when I went through a process of just meditating and chanting for a 12-hour period. And then I meditated for 3 days after that. And through this purification process that I was being prepared for, and these beings were literally preparing me for and teaching me certain yantras and mantras and mudras and meditative practices, ancient kriyas, that were teaching me these processes to purify my being. I was then met with the being of Babaji, and I didn't know it was him to begin with. It was literally, he appeared to me in this most illuminating body of light, and I couldn't even see his face. He was that illuminating, and I had no idea who he was, but I could just feel this pure, unconditional love that, true words could never describe, the presence that was held in that moment. But it was just melting any sense of identification, any sense of awareness of another. It was just a total immersion and fusion. And he literally took me out of my body and showed me a 360-degree view of my body laying on the ground and the environment that I was laying in. And he literally materialized this golden tower at the center of this body that was laying on the ground. And he asked me a question. He goes, how do you get from the bottom of that tower to the top? And the tower was very symbolic. It was representing the Tower of Life. And I said to him, by taking each step as it comes. So exactly, you must be present at each moment. You must be eternally present in the now, and take each step as it comes, and gradually step to the ladder of life. Then he asked, once you reach a certain elevation of life, what would prevent one from falling and repeating that step in which you once took? And I said, appreciation of those very steps. He goes, correct, because if you don't appreciate the steps, if you don't appreciate those challenges and those opportunities, then who will? Because you are the creator of them. So you must appreciate all aspects of your own creation in order to advance and learn and embody that lesson from that step of life. And then he looked at me, and then the entire field collapsed. My whole astral body, physical body, all levels and layers of this auric field started departiculating, collapsing. And then I found myself in quite a lucid state in this etheric labyrinth. And the labyrinth was extremely symbolic, because if you were to slice a brain in half, the brain very much looks like a labyrinth. The very movements and neural pathways of the brain is pretty much the labyrinth of life. And I was right in the center of this labyrinth, of this maze. And outside of this maze, there was quite a multi-dimensional experience. So Babaji's presence was very much outside and looking in, but overshadowing and overlooking where I was located in this realm, in this astral realm. And he asked me, he goes, I want you to get from the center of this maze into the outside within 1 second. And I looked around and I said, it's all an illusion. And with that comment, everything dissolved. And then I was taken straight back into my body, and his hands literally put his hand on top of my head, pressed his finger into the Sahasrara, the crown chakra, and popped open all these 144 chakras that sit on top of the head, and then just my Kundalini shot out through my spine, and I cascaded into those higher realms and just went on this incredible journey through the samadhi, the state of Nirikapala samadhi. And I was initiated through this Shakti part, this Padma Shakti influence that came from his presence and his anointment, in a sense. And that experience totally changed my life. Every biological system in my body, when I came out of that samadhi experience, and I was in that experience for hours, if not days, and it was this rapture, this divine rapture of bliss. It was pretty much, there is no words that can ever shed any aspect of light to these experiences, because they are beyond the mind, they are beyond expression. At best we can depict a picture, but that's all we can truly do. But it was literally like being able to experience the visual expression of every single color, not just the color prisms within our third dimensional universe, but also all spectrums of the multidimensional universe, but not only being able to see them, but also being able to taste them and feel them and hear the harmonics all at once. It's like this total unified presence then collapsing into this total void space where we feel there is nothing, is the ever-presence of the zero, but then rebirthing into that space that holds everything, that has the potential and the potentiality to create all life and sustain and transform all life. And so I was going through this continued rapture, and as I came out of that, my whole energetic circuitry of my body had been transfigurated, and my whole meridian system and biocircuitries, or the nadial pathways, and all that energy dynamics within my physical body and all the energetic levels and layers flipped and changed and recreated new pathways. It's like the literal way my heart would pump blood reversed, and it's like the magnetics flipped and rolled over, and all the magnetics within all my organs flipped and rolled over. And it was a literal metamorphosis within my physical body and the energetic container that holds the physical body. And ever since then I was and am continued to be guided by that mentorship, and I've just been given the dispensation to share that process, that pathway of that genetic liberation process where you're freeing the karmic cycles inside your being. And it was it was a long process, but it was also a very, very significant and dedicated process that I went through. And that was the original experience of meeting the great Maha Avatar himself, even though he would never ever call himself a Maha Avatar. He is extremely humble, is the embodiment of total humility. There has been a series of other events where he has come to me and spoke to me and shed light and gave me certain mudras and mantras to share of my personal experience. And then also when I went to India, I had a direct connection as well, when there was a great materialization of specific etheric substance coming in, bridging into the physical, and there was teachings of what that represented as another purification process, as this levels and layers keep unfolding, and it's a never-ending process. One may think that they enter into the realm of enlightenment or total realization and the whole story ends. No, the realization of who you truly are does end, but the continuation of that journey never truly ends. And so I've continued this path of initiation and just taking those steps, one step after the other, and being taught what the ancient Rishis call the path of the 9 perfect cycles. And that's what they refer to as the path of liberation and also immortality in a true sense.
How beautiful for you to experience that in the way that you did, and to feel that energetic circuitry totally flipping, totally reversing, and you even called it genetic liberation. So you have been given a dispensation by Babaji to take this to the world and help others realize it. And I love how you said that this journey never really ends. So can you talk more about the path of the 9 perfect circles and this path of liberation? Some would be hesitant to surrender in the ways that you surrender. Because you've done it this way and you can share this wisdom, is it possible for people to still, I guess, be in their home with their family as they go through this sort of a change or this sort of a realization?
I believe so. I believe anything's possible, and I believe with focus and dedication, and you can definitely customize the spiritual pathway for your actual purpose in this incarnation. And our purpose does change, it does evolve. Our purpose at one level may be so, but when we expand our consciousness and continue involution and evolution, we do change our purpose in life, our purpose to serve. And that's ultimately what the purpose always is to serve. You free yourself karmically, and then you serve to free others. And I was originally initiated by a householder. The elder grandmother is a householder. She keeps underground. She doesn't want to go into the public eye. She has, on many occasions, but she was one of the original people that initiated me on this path, and it's nothing to be overwhelmed with. It's simply a miraculous event that can be embodied and can be directly experienced, and it doesn't shift who you are. It just changes the way that you may choose to perceive life. It may thin the veil or totally deveil any false concepts of the total unification of your multidimensional being and who you truly are as a creator.
Mm-hmm. So beautiful. So the elder grandmother, the wisdom keeper of the white buffalo people, let's talk a little bit about that. Isn't that amazing that she spoke of this connection to the Himalayan Rishis? Now, Was she connecting to them through her meditation practices, through the etheric realm?
No, she had personal initiation as well. They literally materialized to her and one night and literally appeared in her bedroom of all places and initiated her. And upon that initiation, that literally awakened her and led her on a pathway of healing and transformation for not only herself but many others. And so her journey alone was one of direct contact, and it's all reflective of our quantum lives and who we have been in different lives and what coding that we still have latent within our genetics, but also in our morphogenic signature that goes beyond this incarnation. And then it's just about recollecting all those different signatures and codings to be embodied and fully integrated in this life, and bringing all those timelines into this now moment and to this incarnation. And she was one that did that and spoke very highly of this pathway. And it's literally the pathway of re-embodying all the cycles. It's called the 9 perfect cycles, because everything in our life is governed by cycles. We look at nature, we look at the seasons, we look at the cosmic cycles of the electromagnetic fields and how they rotate around, each planet rotates around, and different orchestrations and geometries of not only our solar system but our whole galaxy. And that's what this is. This pathway is all around. It's about actually bridging the macrocosm to the microcosm. It's about embodying who you truly are at the universal level. And you have inside you all the planets. You have inside you all the energy that's corresponding to the planets of our solar system. And you have the ability to connect with them. And the reason why it's called this genetic liberation is because you're freeing the karma that's encrypted. It's encrypted into your DNA. And karma's not a bad thing. Karma's just the word of action. It's an action that's happened and that's created a record. And so what this process does is neutralizing those records. It's freeing the karmic imprint that's coded into the genetics. And that can go back through the paternal line, it can go back through the maternal line, and it can go back even 21 generations for a high incarnated soul, and possibly even further. But normally it's around seven generations backwards in time. And once that's cleared, it also clears forwards in time. It's changing the coding of the DNA, and it's switching the certain coding on and off that created mutations in and created corruption in the genetic code itself to stop it being fully accessible. So what this process does is literally resets your cycle, your universal cycle, all the different planets, and how those universal cycles map into your body. It's coming back in alignment with them, and then what it's doing is embodying those universal cycles, so you become a sovereign being. You're not literally bound by the karmic imprint of your ancestral path. You're not bound by the karmic imprint of past lives or current life or even soul records. You transcend those 4 key aspects of your karma, and the reason why you can do that is because karma is held within the energetics and biocircuitry of your body. The action of record, those records are held within your nadial system, and nadis are like energetic spiritual nerves, and they literally wrap around the organs and the spinal column. And if they don't wrap around in a full 360-degree revolution, then there's a twisted pattern. And that twisted pattern is creating a blockage, not only energetically inside your body, but it's also creating a blockage external to you. So you would keep attracting those situations or those certain people or those certain events in your life because it's coming to you so you can transcend it and recorrect that blockage or that twisted pattern of energy that's still inside your inside your body. And so it's called the pathway of the 9 perfect cycles, because it's clearing out the cycles, and liberation is only the first cycle of that. Immortality is obviously a higher embodiment and attainment along that process, but genetic liberation is the first perfect cycle, which is reflipping the magnetics. So your magnetics are no longer, and your genetic code is no longer bound to the earth itself. It's no longer connected to in the ancestral pathway. It's literally freed. It's coming from the cosmic intelligence. And then you can, if you choose to reincarnate, you can, but it's from your free will choice. And if you choose to come back and be more the bodhisattva and play out that purpose, then you can and help humanity and usher them on their own evolution. Or you can choose to go into another planet. There's millions, if not trillions, in other planets, throughout the cosmic universe. This was told to me directly by the Rishis, within our Milky Way galaxy alone, there's over 26,000 different planets that have life on those planets. So we have the availability to free ourselves and then be a cosmic citizen, go travel the multiverse and incarnate. And a lot of your listeners and a lot of us that have come here to make the great shifts are starseeds. We are actually coded from the stars. Myself, I've only had two incarnations on this planet, and that's because we heard the call, and we heard that call. We've come to Earth to help save her, so we can free the ones that have forgotten who they truly are as divine sovereign beings.
Wow, just listening to you, it is as if you are helping us transcend a lot of this. It's amazing that it's this genetic liberation, this karma that is encrypted in our DNA. I've heard others speak of this as the distortions that keep us from this knowledge of who we truly are. So for you then, you did mention that this is a journey that never really ends. We're all evolving out of it. How would someone begin to experience what you've experienced? I know there's meditation that we would do to this. You even mentioned the elder grandmother taught you how to unlock this that is within yourself. Have you come up with a process? I know you teach a lot of courses that educate people to move into this avatar consciousness, but is there a quick process or a way that you could describe how we unlock that which is within us?
Absolutely. And it's about having one's own unique spiritual experience. Even if I teach you a simple process, which I will in a moment, it's not about having an experience that I've had. It's definitely about having your personal experience of the highest potential and the divine potential that you have coded within your being. And it all begins and ends with a state of non-action. And this is literally the first step, and in truth the only step. It's where you can be so centered within your being where you no longer spend energy. You're spending energy out into the external world, but you're cultivating that very energy internally. And as you cultivate that energy, it starts rising. It starts rising spontaneously. Everything happens in life through the spontaneity of creation, of evolution. Nothing happens by force. We can't force these things. Even though I teach courses and programs and offer healing and activations and transformational work, these are guiding posts, and this is a guideline to help that spontaneity to rebirth itself through you and not to be forced. It's not that you're going to do one meditation and all of a sudden it's going to unlock this. It doesn't, obviously, and this obviously doesn't work in this linear fashion. But the simple technique is literally staying in your center and staying in what's known as the hara. But the most ancient reference to this was known as the state of non-action. And so if you were to visualize right in front of you, just in your mind's eye, a compass with north, east, west, south, on the compass, if you attune yourself just to the north, and that would be straight up, if we just go true north, not the north of the earth which is on a wobble and an axis tilt, but actually the true north, straight up. And if we focused on that internal compass, and we stayed centered, and no matter what we did, whether it was speak and have a conversation to any of our loved ones, or even if it was a person on the streets, or if we were just to do the groceries, or if it was just watching a movie or reading a book, or any activity in the external world, if you were to stay in that state of non-action, what that does, it stops sending energy out into that manifest world. Because a lot of people don't realize that they're leaking their energy. They're actually giving their power away. And a lot of people are giving their power away through the lower chakra centers of their body. But what happens when you become conscious and fully present in the now, this state of non-action, you start cultivating this energy. You start rising this energy. And it starts unlocking the seals inside your spine. It starts rising through your spine spontaneously. And then when it gets to a point, when it comes near your heart, near the 22nd vertebrae, I think it's the T8, around that area of the spinal column, it starts unlocking certain etheric energy. And this ether is literally the fifth element that helps create these four elemental creative forces in our respective nature and our organic matrix. It helps unlock this, and that when that starts unlocking, it starts purifying your being. It starts purifying all the sin. And when I say sin, I'm not coming from a Christian or Catholic, dogmatic perception of a point of view. I'm coming from the true origins of sin, which is the imperfection, or the misunderstanding of perfection. And what I mean by that is some people forget the true miracles of what this life truly is, and they don't eat the right foods. They don't eat life-nourishing foods and enriches their body and enriches their organs. They potentially utilize other foods that are induced by emotional states or discourse or distress, and then from that level, once you correct the imperfections and you start purifying your being from even the simple utilization of our voice, when one says something out of turn and doesn't speak from their heart, they're missing the imperfection. They're missing the perfection of their being. They're missing the gift that is to actually speak and utilize this voice to actually communicate to another and express the divine qualities of one's heart's nature. So what this energy does, it starts purifying all that, but it also purifies down the genetic line, the distortions that you spoke of earlier, distortions when one hasn't lived a life according to divine universal law or divine principle. And when those universal principles aren't upheld in one's dharma or life path, what happens is there's these energetic twists and these entanglements that happen in the biofield. So that promotes stagnation, which promotes then physically this acidosis, which creates inflammation. So there's a direct connection to our spiritual energetic body and our physical body. So when we start purifying this holy temple, this sacred temple that we have as this body, then that energy can start rising and it doesn't get spent out into the external world and doesn't get spent out through the lower chakras, but actually helps transcend those chakras, and it starts bridging into the heart unity consciousness and starts bridging further into the higher realms of consciousness and starts bridging into the more morphogenic chakras, which are beyond the personal chakras, the personal 7 chakras. And as that takes place, then there's this spontaneous release where certain magnetics within the body start rearranging themselves. Every organ is governed by a particular planet. And when a particular planet, for instance, the heart is governed by the sun. So when the sun is in a astrological nodal reference to in a specific place in our own personal natal chart in our astrology, that influences the characteristics of one's heart and pericardium, the sac in which holds the heart. And there's internal chakras within that heart as well, which can produce this etheric energy. So when we are in alignment to these universal principles and we come into that state of neutrality, state of non-action, then the energy does itself. It's because it's omnipresent and it's also very intelligent. It's omniscient, so it has a higher intelligence that rearranges itself spontaneously through your body and starts recorrecting any misalignments or any, sin or imperfection that one may have in their energetic body or their physical body. So once you stay in that state and don't move from that state, you no longer spend that energy into your emotional body and get caught up into the illusion of your emotions, or you no longer spend that energy into the mental body and get caught up in thoughts that take you down rabbit holes. That is a never-ending process of loops. So it helps you refine and retain that energy for it to ascend through your being, and then it can rearrange the biocircuitries and start purifying your divine holy temple of your body.
Okay, this is the importance of staying centered in the state of non-action. Just feeling that, just feeling that, feeling into the words that you just spoke there. I'm at a loss for words because we can feel the energy within ourselves in this centered state. So we'll go into a few more questions with you, Akasha. Now would be a great time to talk about your Portals of Liberation course. You take people down this deep path and you go much, much deeper in this wisdom with your special offer, and that is called the Portals of Liberation. Take a quick moment and share with us about this course.
Okay, thank you. So essentially, Portals of Liberation is a process which gives you not only the pathway and the illumination of that map, the pathway of your being, but it also gives you certain energetic coding, and this is in the form of what the ancients would call yantras and we call source codes, which are geometric codes that hold the universal language being sound, vibration, and light. And these geometries help the process of unlocking certain biocircuitries and certain energetic templates within your being. And this isn't new technology, by the way. It's very ancient. This technology was first seeded by the Rishis themselves. They would give these yantras, these universal geometries and source codes to their initiates and to their students to help advance them along the path. And so I utilize the teachings themselves, and then I also utilize these geometric codes and help perform clearings and healings and activations to help enhance those alignments that are necessary to help us get the most benefit from the practices, because there is a lot of practices that come with these Portals of Liberation. And the first module, for instance, is around the Holy Grail within. So what the true Holy Grail is, this Holy Grail that is literally located within our body, within our coccyx and our sacrum, that maps into our hips, And if we follow along that energetic line, those vertebrae, what happens, they form a chalice within our being. And the first 9 vertebrae of the coccyx and sacrum, each one of those vertebrae is a correspondent connection to a planet. So this is where our planetary chakras are located. And just below the coccyx, there's what's known as the Kunda, what the Rishis call the Kunda, which is the Kundalini egg. It's the egg of the serpent. This is that cosmic egg within each one of us. We have literally a body of all these trillions of cells which recycle themselves, but there's 8 original genesis cells within our body which create this egg of life, and that's in the perineum. And in the perineums, that forms this Kunda, and once that opens up, that helps open up the Kundalini energy, and it starts circulating through these 9 planets. And what that does, it starts realigning those cosmic forces. And if we think of the celestial bodies of the planets as archetypes of energy, archetypal energy that help influence certain cycles in the earthly realm. I mean, for instance, we all know when Mercury goes retrograde, communication is quite chaotic. And obviously that there's a principle there that maps out within our body. And so I teach people how to utilize that energy and cultivate that energy and rise that in to harness and utilize this holy grail. And this is basically the chalice, the internal chalice, to fill up this cup, and to fill up this cup with this primordial energy and help the sustenance and to sustain the body and to rise that energy up and to help that acceleration process of that serpent coiled Kundalini rising through the Padma Shakti, the Shakti energy that can lift up through our body. And so when one can cultivate this energy, they can start unlocking their hip chakras, which there's 9 corresponding hip chakras, which also map into the planetary system. And so that is all our creative influences. So once you've unlocked these, it's easy for you to create and co-create with spirits and manifest your dreams and desires from that level. So module 1's all around that holy grail within. In module 2, we go into the cosmic spine, understanding what the 33 vertebrae seals are within us and how to literally clear any karmic imprintings from those nodal pathways that we spoke about earlier, and how they can be stopping the ascension of this rising energy, that primordial energy through the central Sushumna or Hara line through our spine. So we go into the depths of the cosmic energy and how that maps out not only within your being, but the connection to that into the cosmos. So we really bridge the macro and microcosm. In module 3, we go into the activating the spiritual heart and realizing the depth of the 4 chambers of the heart, how they connect to the 4 directions of the universe, and how to access that internal sacred space within the heart. And so from that internal space, we can literally unlock what's known as the 9 internal chakras of that heart as well, which once they are in balance with the divine feminine and the divine masculine principles, it helps enhance this electromagnetic field and literally allows us to be aligned, centered within our body, and it literally clears any programming or discordant beliefs that are preventing us from accessing that source point within our heart's consciousness. And then the 4th is awakening the crystal palace, which is the pineal gland and what sits above the pineal gland and the crystal skull that we all have, and how to help activate our own crystal skull. We've heard about many legends around the crystal skulls of the main timelines and the wisdom teachers and carriers, but how do we access our own crystal skull? So this goes into the depth of the energetics that we have on top of our heads, and how our hair is the antenna to literally access that crystal palace within, and how do you experience that etheric state of consciousness and unlock what's known as Amrita or Soma, which is a substance that literally is cultivated through the pineal gland and is a sweet nectar that can help electrify and center and nourish your being to help advance you along your spiritual path. So that's a very short briefing of the program, but it's very, very in depth. Every module is around 3 and 3.5 hours long, with healings and clearings to support the content.
Fantastic. So beautiful. Again, this is really helping us understand what that word embodiment means, what that subject, what this concept of embodiment means. And it also helps us understand ourselves so much more deeply as that which keeps us from this. And it really is this programming of our 3D world, of this external world around us, and it really is up to us to reclaim this. So beautiful that you've been in deep contact with the Rishis to experience this on your own and then to help others as well.
Yes, I'd just like to take a moment just to honor you for listening to this message, and just take it at your own level of contemplation and realization, and just realize that you are it, you are the one, you are that great being that has the ability to embody the totality of this creation. And I just want to honor just your commitment to realizing your true self, and just remember that you are always sovereign and you are always free.
You are the one, you are it. Powerful words, so comforting. And again, we can just feel the essence of what you spoke today. And what better time when we do look around at our world and we can misspend our energy by watching the news or by watching politics. This really is our personal responsibility, and we thank you so much for being that way shower of how we could do it. You had mentioned being so centered in our being that this allows the cultivating energy to rise within us. And it's almost as if this energy is purifying us. It's changing those bioenergetic templates. And is this what it is when we are in this process of being fully centered, being fully present? Is there any other, I don't even want to call it work, but when we're in this state of non-action and these seals are beginning to unlock, are we aware of that as it's happening? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. You will be aware of it at one level or another, and you'll be aware of it of things happening external to you. So there'll be a lot of refinement. Maybe old reflections are falling away, or old patterns, or old aspects of yourself just literally falling away and dismantling. But internally, it's a feeling. It's even beyond the feeling. It's like this internal alchemic process that transpires. For instance, the first signifier is when this energy starts rising up to the 22nd vertebrae, or T8 in the thoracic center of our spine. It starts unlocking what I said earlier, this ether. But what it also does is start stimulating this golden substance, this solar oil. It's like this burning oil that is so hot, it doesn't burn you like an external burn would, but it's a heated oil. And what that does, that starts dripping. It starts dripping down, and the first organ it hits is the pancreas. It starts hitting, there's like 3 drops that go into the pancreas, and this starts purifying all those sugar molecules and coatings in the pancreas. And what this does is literally starts the cycle, and there's a cycle that goes around inside our system, just how all the macro cycles go around the stars, and obviously the planets go around our planet. These microcycles that happen within are literally going through this alchemic purification process. And the first experience of this is what I call the soul absorption. So it's like you've entered your heart consciousness and you just expand. Your heart opens and you're fully operating with this universal unity consciousness. You realize that you're a lot more than just this physical body, and you're interconnected, interrelated to every being on this planet. And this is a level of awakeness and self-realization in a true sense. But what happens is when that soul essence, it starts expanding. It expands through the morphogenic field of your heart. It starts expanding outwardly, and it starts regathering all the different quantum lives, all the different timelines, all the different coding that's happened throughout all the different incarnations that one may have, and it starts pulling that back into the body template, into the body hologram, different levels and layers of the field. It starts condensing it back and starts circulating that light intelligence or soul intelligence around the nadis, around the meridians, around the internal biocircuitries, and starts bringing it around the spine, and starts also bringing it around the organs, and it starts bringing back like lost pieces of the puzzle of life back to your hologram, starts completing the picture. So you go from puzzle to picture. And then once you embody that process of soul absorption, and you go through that soul absorption process, you start integrating a more vaster, significant field of consciousness known as the monad or the oversoul. And this is a process known as monadic integration. And so this is when several of your organs have started rolling over. What I mean by rolling over, the north and south nodal point of reference starts flipping over, and the north becomes the south and the south becomes the north. And what happens is the energy doesn't go in a descending spiral. Your energy is not getting locked down in a descending spiral. It's actually reversed. It's into an ascending spiral. So the energy naturally inside your being ascends. It ascends into the higher aspects of your consciousness, in the higher chambers and vortexes of your being. And so through this monadic integration, you start embodying a vaster field of consciousness, and you become more the observer, more the witness. It's like at the soul level, you're more the actor of the play, but at the monad, you're more the director, who's the all-pervading presence that starts seeing the different aspects within this field of consciousness, and all the aspects to that field of consciousness is like regathering into this soul family. And so you start integrating that into your body, and so your body starts rearranging the genetic coding, the genetic karma, the soul karma, also the present life incarnation karma, and also past or quantum life karma. And all this coding starts rearranging your body as you start coming online to this monadic presence. And you start stationing your consciousness at dimensions 7, 8, 9. So this is where you're literally bridging, you're a bridger from the higher realms into this physical makeup. And so this then starts, you start going through another process after monadic integration into avatar alignments, and this is where your higher fields of consciousness start rearranging and embodying into your system, and you start coming online to dimensions 10, 11 and 12, and this is where that avatar consciousness is out, where avatar means the descent. So you become like the descent of source consciousness, and your whole prime mission is to be of service to humanity, to help, be more the bodhisattva, being literally a service of the divine plan. And you're literally this finely tuned instrument to go about your service mission and be in total alignment to that consciousness. And alchemically inside you, there's more energetics starts rearranging, like the vitras, which are like the petals of each of your chakras, they start rearranging as well. And these internal geometries start rearranging and start purifying. Then new vitras or new petals start actually merging from particular chakras. And the old chakras start organically releasing as well when their energy starts merging more into the heart center, and other chakras into the morphogenic spectrum of consciousness start coming online as well. So you start having a higher dimensional perspective of intelligence that streams through your body. And so there's all these different things that transpire within your being, and you do become more consciously aware of this process as it continues.
Yes, and we've spoken about feeling multidimensionality within us, and that is precisely what you just described. So beautiful to really understand embodiment and to see the pathway of it. I know there's many listening that truly wish this for themselves. And again, we are soothed when we realize that this energy is within us and we simply need to unlock it and embody it. I want to give you a moment to talk about the portals of liberation and more about how the soul ascends. Our soul really does ascend in the body through consciousness and through into these higher dimensions.
Okay, I could give a personal example of my journey. When I experienced that soul absorption process, and as it went into the monadic integration, it was though that this fire inside my heart, literally this etheric flame, started combusting and burning and expanding with that fire, this great heat. And then it started spreading over not only my heart and my chest, but around all my organs. And what happened, it started cultivating those solar drops that I spoke about, those like solar oil. The actual ancient Greeks used to call this the Christos. The Christos, which is the risen Christ. And Christ comes from the anointed one, which is actually the sacred oils within our being. So this Christos energy, or this Christ energy, is literally a alchemic substance within us. And what happened to me directly was that there was this flame that just started growing, and it's this incredible flame that started accessing the Kundalini energy inside the Kunda, that cosmic egg, and it started literally spiraling that, because I didn't just have one Kundalini experience, and no one will just have one once they go seriously on their path. You may have a Kundalini awakening, but there's a process of how Kundalini will raise throughout your body, and it's not just at the level of the element of fire. You can have a water experience of Kundalini. Kundalini can express itself through water, wind, fire, ether, and also earth. They all have different. You have different experiences when it raises itself or expresses itself through these different elements. But through this specific process, it was this celestial flame that kept illuminating and literally burning brighter and brighter. And then it started encompassing all around my organs and my body and my auric field. And it was like my entire body was engulfed in flames. I could smell this incredible burning of like rubber. It smelled like this burning of rubber that literally was just burning and burning and purifying. It's like I was literally sitting in a furnace. And what happened is that initial spark, that primal spark inside that created this blaze, started ascending out of the heart, and it came into the pineal gland. And as it came into the pineal gland, it started rearranging my brain, my left and right hemisphere of my brain, to start merging and start rebalancing itself. And as it did that, it started balancing, and I could feel this like ants going through my body. It literally felt like the central nervous system started rearranging itself, and the parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system started readjusting. And there's two energetic lines that go up the left and right-hand side of the spinal column, which is known as the Ida and Pingala. Pingala is the solar, and Ida is more the lunar, the magnetic. You've got the electric and magnetic. So that was rearranging, crisscrossing. And through that ascension of this energy, it's like this fire and that initial spark just bursted through my crown chakra, and it literally shattered. It shattered the force of this cosmic presence shattered the actual ceiling or the veil around the Sahasrara, the crown chakra, and it, literally we call it the 1,000-petaled lotus. But those petals started rearranging themselves and shifting and started shattering and spreading across the universe. And it's like there's this big golden geometric net that just started forming around the entire universe, and then that soul essence just left, and as that left, it was this emptying, and then as that process continued, it was like this refinement and death, internal death process. And then as that happened, my heart stopped beating. It literally stopped beating and stood still. But it didn't stop beating per se. What actually happened, what I found out later, was that the rhythm and the beat of the heart was so balanced, it reset itself into that original spark point, that original pulse that initiated the rhythm of the heart. It reset to that point. And it was so balanced in its masculine and feminine qualities that it seemed like it actually stopped. And physically, I felt that it stopped, and I was in this rapture, and I had no beat. I was in this beatless state. And as that continued, I entered into this breathless state where I didn't need to breathe. Didn't need to breathe oxygen. It was like my body was sustained by this internal pranic nourishment, this internal sustenance from this primordial energy. And it just started burning and went on and on and on for a long process. Obviously, I wasn't watching the clock during this process. But as it continued, literally the consciousness that once resided within this physical body left, and all the records left, all the consciousness of, or the memory, basically, of having parents, having brothers, having past relations and relationships, and all the memory just dissolved back into the void, the zero point. And all there was left was this reverberation, this internal om, this internal primordial sound, this celestial chant almost. And that's what continued to happen. And from that space, I literally was rebirthed out of that process, and then I experienced this total rebirth. But I didn't actually know who I was or if I was anyone, because my mind just totally stopped. There was no thoughts anymore. There was no thoughts at all. There was no engagement with thoughts. There was no thinking. So it was just total ending. And before that totally happened, it was like every single thought that ever was thought within this conscious instrument had to be rewind. A tape of life had to go through a whole reset and rewind back and back and back into the 0 point, and then it dismantled every thought construct or belief system that ever allowed me to believe I was anything else but that primal source and presence.
Thank you for sharing your experience of that. You know, when we've heard of the yogis doing this, where they appear not to be breathing, they appear not to have a heartbeat. Yogananda, in his book, spoke of several beings that were this way. That is what you experienced. So that is simply fascinating, and it is for us to understand what we can go through as well. I know I have heard of some people with Kundalini awakenings, and one man had something go through his body where the bottom of his feet were burned. Do you have any advice, or are there any guidelines that you can offer on what to do to protect a Kundalini rampant firing, to maybe make it more of a, I don't know if there's even a word that we can use to describe this. I don't know if you can make it gentle, but this was something that literally totally reworked your body energetics. That is true alchemy. Do you have any advice on, some people say if you don't open your chakras first, that could lead you into strange occurrences. But your thoughts would be appreciated on this.
Absolutely. The Kundalini is a natural process and a natural energy that we all can tap into. And like I said before, there is 5 elemental expressions that the Kundalini can come through. And for instance, the fire is the most common because there is a lot of masculine electric energy on this planet. And we are obviously rebalancing that with the divine feminine and the rise of that divine feminine. But there has been this dominance of this fire energy from the Kundalini, and if you don't have your nadis in alignment, if you don't have your chakras balanced, if you don't have the internal biocircuitries actually rearranged to harness this energy, then yeah, it can create a premature activation. But from that activation, it can actually create a burn-off and a frying of their circuitries, literally a frying. I've seen that some people have activated themselves and haven't mentally been stable ever since. And it's not a force to play with. You have to go slow and gentle, but it's about doing the preparation work. For instance, you're not going to pour a slab of concrete without creating the framework. You're not going to build a house and rewire the electricity circuitry of that house and switch that electrical circuitry on and plug it into the main without making sure it's actually correct and making sure it's all aligned and following the blueprint. So with the Kundalini, for instance, it can express itself in a waterway. I've experienced the Kundalini, how it's like this pouring of energy. It's like this liquid gold, like just rushing up through the spine, just like a hose. Water would flow out the hose, and you can experience it in that way, the more feminine, gentle approach. You can experience it in the element of wind, and I've experienced it where it's just this quick rise and then fall, then a rise again. It's like this jolting that rises quite fast and rapid. Then you can experience it in the actual earth element, and this is actually more tough than it is the fire, because the earth element is like it's a jackhammer. It's going in, it's busting through your spinal seals, and it literally like someone's got a jackhammer going through all the levels of your vertebrae, and all your bones are shattering and shaking and rolling, and that's quite a deep experience. And then there's also the ether way of the Kundalini rising, where it's actually just so instant. It's just instantaneously directly through your whole Sushumna column and out through all your biocircuitries and balance. And it's like a lightning flash that goes through your body. And if it is awakened prematurely, then there can be burns, not only on the feet. Like if it's burns on your feet, then your chakras aren't open on your feet. There can be burns on your hands. There can be burns anywhere on your body. You can get this rash that actually appears at your lower spine, where around the coccyx and sacrum, and that actually creates it's like this burning pole, and it's like someone's literally inserted a burning metal rod into your spinal column, and that can like literally ache and ache and pain. But what that's doing is fusing literally the alchemy of those first 3 chakras, and it's resetting them so they are not operating independently. They are fused together and operating up into the higher chakras. And this is a sure sign that your Kundalini energy is literally transcending all those lower egoic desires. And in the world of I guess instant gratification that a lot of people are experiencing, is that they do take certain medicines to enhance these spiritual attributes and enhance these spiritual experiences. But what happens if you don't balance your internal circuitry, if you don't balance the Ida, the Pingala, the nadis, the Sushumna, open up the seals in the spine, balance your chakras and realign your meridians and let the prana or the chi flow freely through your body, there can be this circuitry, this burn off or this frying of the circuitry, and that's exactly what the portals of liberation teaches, is you how to balance this energy. It's like literally the guidebook to help rearrange the biocircuitries inside you so you can come accustomed to such a high voltage, a high force of intelligence, because when that energy activates, you can't try to control it. You just have to totally surrender. And that is what it's literally initiating you into, this surrender of this cosmic force. So it destroys and transforms any concepts of separation or illusion that may be capping or may be preventing the total embodiment of divinity to incarnate into your divine temple.
Wow. Again, thank you for sharing that. And as you did mention, your course goes into how we can really prepare our body for that and move through that. For those, it seems like that this is happening to people, and we may not even be aware that it's happening to us. Can you give a few clues then? Like how were you able to recognize that this was Kundalini energy? Some might just think it's a rash, or they're having mysterious burns on their body appear. For the layman, or for the novice just getting into this, how would one identify that this is actually the Kundalini rising?
Fantastic question. You're so right. A lot of the cosmic energy is becoming available for everyone's body hologram, and a lot of people are just activating this incredible force and not really aware what's actually going on. There's different symptoms that can be presented in the body. You could be going through flu-like symptoms, and you could be going through purging. You could be purging, and this energy is literally walking, expressing itself through your body. It's a purification process, so we have to remember that. So there might be heating up of the physical body. There might be extreme fatigue where you just have to lay down. You can't even move your body because there's this. It's like you're being reset. You might have body aches. You might be really sleepy and you have to just rest. You might have memory loss. You might be changed with your body. You might be losing lots of weight. You might put on a little bit of weight because your body needs to actually have a readjustment in its levels, in its hormonal levels, in the body fats, and there's so many different experiences that can be had on an individual level, but the main signifier to all this is your shift of perception. When you stop perceiving that you are separate from others, and when you start actually feeling a deeper connection, and an electromagnetic even connection to the field, like the field that when we look around we think that we're in this empty space. There's space between it. There's no such thing as space. There's this energetic container of all this coding that's taking place around us, all these different geometries, all these different frequencies that are literally circulating around us. And when you start feeling that, when you start embedding yourself into that, and your intuition starts spiking, you just know things are going to happen. You don't know what it's going to be, but you sort of know something's up. You have this intuition that starts taking control, and these are all symptoms of literally the ascension process, your body getting ready to ascend. And ascension really means is ascending from one dimension of consciousness to another. So your body's going through a cellular reset. It's going through energetic reset, a template reset. The whole photonic light emissions within your genetics, in your DNA and your RNA are rearranging and changing. And your body is literally accreting more light, and your light quotient is rising. So this means your vibration is rising, and with that you're more expansive. You start potentially thinking of things that you never really contemplated before. You may be inspired to open a new door and go down a new path, and these are all direct reflections of something is birthing inside you. Something is getting ready to truly take you upon this path of initiation.
Well, again, we can feel into those words and truly understand it. Thank you for sharing that perspective. I know many of us now have a better awareness of that, and when we tap into our own intuition or when it's very clear, yes, we can now understand that this is a purification process, and we can stop seeing ourselves as separate. I know many listening to this show are already at a point where they are no longer triggered by the outside world, and so that's very beautiful. Well, what a fascinating conversation. My last question for you, and I do thank you so much for your time. You have recently been assigned from a cosmic level, from a great council of light, an ambassadorship of sorts. Can you share a little bit? I know you're still integrating this information and you're due to go into the Amazon jungle here again shortly. Can you share again what this new cosmic role is that you are about to step fully into?
Another beautiful question. Yes, I'm most definitely integrating this and truly honoring this process that is laying before me. And the other week I went through I guess it's a galactic reset and reference of time and where my body is located. And what happened was that I was greeted in the middle of the night in my bedroom by 3 illuminated beings, and I was asked to go with them. So I did, and I was taken on board would be known more of like a safe house, but it's like an embassy. It was what they called it was a guardian embassy. And within this, there's different. They were showing me different councils, and there's many councils that are operating, these higher star councils. Every different race has different councils, and there's many different names, but the term that I use is the Guardian Alliance, and these beings are a part of the interdimensional association of free worlds, the worlds and the guardianship and stewardship of beings that are operating through the law of one. And so there's grand and great, I guess, races and fields of consciousness that are operating with us directly. Some of us are consciously aware of this and some of us are not. But it's about implementing this great shift of time, this great new era and epoch that is on the emergence of our timelines. And for me, I was brought up to speed with some incredible information around certain souls that are incarnating and certain population control. And what I mean by population control and what I was shown by population control is that the Earth itself in specific regions is very heavily overpopulated. So the councils were showing how they've been putting certain procedures in place to stop and prevent certain incarnations going into certain regions and through the grids. So there's a resetting of the grids, and there's also emissions, plasmic emissions that are coming not only into the planets from the solar rays and different planetary systems, but there's also plasmic energy secreting from the internal architecture of the Earth that's now come online. And so with this, there's a purification process that's happening in the land. All the noble metals and the noble gases, the rhodium, the platinum, the palladium, the gold, the silver, all these different metals are literally coming back into the soils of where there was defertile land and sterile lands. A lot of the deserts, that used to be all forests and rainforests and lush green environments, and now it's sand because it's lost its mineral count. So there's a more guess, pathways that are being presented for this energy to be redispersed through these grids to help resustain this land and also purify these processes. So I was shown different topics that basically are happening in the higher realms and what have been implementing down. And there's certain technologies that have been implementing down into our dimension as well. And a lot of the main topic is around free energy, and this free energy that is coming, and the suppression of this free energy, and also the suppression of consciousness that is happening, and there's certain nanotechnology that is literally resetting not only the architecture of our planet, but also the internal architecture of people's bodies. And there's this nanotechnology that's creating a biological, I guess, disease inside people's body. And they were showing different situations and scenarios and timelines that could potentially come into existence. And we have the power to shift these timelines, obviously. But there was also just a lot of information from the higher dimension, and what that information was doing was providing certain opportunities to how we can remap our collective consciousness to be reset into higher dimensions, octaves, and realign certain timelines to actually get a higher opportunity. And there's a big shifting happening in 2017 with this particle convergence. It's like this galactic reset. There's this holographic particle beam that's going to come through the exotonal lines of our planets and literally start reshifting the grids, start reshifting the crystalline structures of our grids, and start resetting the mainframe, the actual energetic lines that held in place certain broadcasts and certain agendas that weren't so positive. So there's a lot of communication around I guess these dynamics, and I was also introduced into the feline races of the Elohim Elohai, and I was welcomed into that lineage. And I was also just speaking to how there's this interbreeding that is taking place as well, or not so much taking place now as much it has been taking place, and how the digression of genetic code has actually become out of alignment with these different interbreeding programs that took place over the centuries of time. And so what's needed to reset those genetics and help, and that's what the galactic currency is. The universal currency of life is actually DNA code, the genetic coding. And so there's a lot of conversation around that particular coding as well. So there was many different things, and for me, I'm just approaching it and being very humbled by being brought into these different civilizations and races, and a lot of it is the remembrance of ancient timelines and ancient incarnations, being a part of these groups. And also one of the most significant moments was actually witnessing the seeding in our morphogenic container of Earth, a new root race, a new consciousness known as the HomoDivinus, and how the founder races, the founder guardians, the ones that started seeding life in this universal source field or universal matrix, and they've rearranged certain particulates of a genetic code and certain templates from what's known as an Orifim soul, which just means a being of light, and an Orifim soul is a Christos Sophia, a divine masculine, feminine embodied soul. How that is actually started the seeding of this HomoDivinus, which is the divine human that has the ability in the genetic code to access all dimensions simultaneously at once from different systems and light councils. So there's a beautiful celebration of that has actually happened, and that field of consciousness has been seeded into our morphogenic container and of our civilization.
Beautiful. So it's only going to get better no matter what we see externally in what could be seemingly chaos at times. Well, that is fascinating, and there's more to be revealed from you, Akasha, as you further integrate this experience with the Guardian Alliance. And so I know there's many listening that would truly wish to bring forth the new technology, the free energy, and to really bring the earth into an ascension process within ourselves. I mean, this is something that we do individually, and as you said, it's different for everyone. You did mention that this holographic particle beam was resetting the grids. Is there a specific time this year when that is going to occur? I've heard around September or August something will come about. Is there a time?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's already started. There's this window that's open, and it's literally broadened up and been filtering into our, not only our planet but also our solar system, and it's been coming from Andromeda galaxy. So that Andromeda or Andromeda galaxy has literally been filtering from its core, because our galaxy was created from Andromeda, and so that energy is literally coming into our galactic central sun, and then that's coming into Alcalon, which is part of the Pleiades, coming into Eucirus Minor, which is what's also known as the Big Dipper, and then that energy is also going around different constellations and creating a new matrix field that's then filtering down into our planet's architecture. And there's a direct beam that will come through as well around August, the 21st of August, around the solar eclipse, and this is what's known as the particle convergence, and it's converging the particle waves into our literal grid system, but also to the source point of the Crystal Cathedral network, which is basically a network of all different, there's 5 different cathedral complexes that have been spewing this high plasmic energy ever since 2012 until 2013. And what it's doing is resetting what's known as the omni wave, which is literally a particle, which is the first particle of creation. Some science has been validating that the whole universe actually is just one particle itself, just reflecting itself. But what this particle convergence is doing is resetting that particle and changing the very geometry. So the geometry of the Vesica Pisces, or the biwave geometry, which is 2 interlocking circles, is actually being recorrected into a triwave. And this is this trinified force which has the complete balance of the divine masculine, divine feminine, and divine child, the androgynous child. And the biwave geometry is more patriarchal. And it's also a reshifting of the grid architecture of a lot of people that would know this as the flower of life, and changing those ratios and spirals into what's known as the Christic spiral, which has a different rotation and a different degree of rotation. It rotates every 45 degrees, and it keeps a relationship to the 0 point. Its external wobble doesn't literally gravitate too far away from its center without keeping a relationship to center or to source. So it's this sustainable energy that's filtering into the planet. And then after August, it's that we start going through this global purge, where there will be a release and a resetting of all this karma within the lands, within the waters, within cultures, and that will start amplifying a lot. All the stuff that's unsettled in the bottom of the fish tank, so to speak, will start coming up for purge and release. And then in December, around the 21st, I believe, there's a new moon, a super moon, around the 12th or 13th, and around a couple of weeks after that, I believe around the 21st of December, around the solstice time, there is what's known as particle emergence, where that energy that's circulated through the grids will start returning out of the actual planets. And as it does that, it starts taking the 3 original bands of light, the 3 original bands of consciousness and dimensions of consciousness, and those chakras. So all those timelines associated with the first 3 dimensions and the first 3 chakras of the planet start actually being transcended and start being released from the planet. So all the timelines associated with the discord and all the war and, you know, all the fallen timelines basically that populated our consciousness and populated our field and our collective field is going to start being pulled out of the planet. So it's this emergence of energy returning out and releasing through our architecture of our planets. And as that happens, these timelines, these higher timelines of Earth's soul expression, which is dimensions 4, 5, and 6, known as Tara, and Earth's consciousness, known as Gaia, dimensions, which is her monadic consciousness, which is dimensions 7, 8, 9, they start coming online. Those timelines, which are also known as the Golden Age timelines, they start becoming more purified and realigned into the grid architecture of our planet, and our planet can actually go through this bionurification, which is literally the timelines are being reset and being pulled away. And so yeah, it's a big process that we're up for. And so a lot of the Guardians and the Alliance members within the Guardians are literally being on standby and also implementing and assisting this process. And a lot of our aspirants, a part of the Institute of Divine Potential, they are helping with this grid work. A lot of grid workers are doing the relevant remapping and architecture that's needed to help reset the grids, and we'll be taking a big group of planetary servers to Egypt in August to help with this reset, because Egypt was the original heart chakra of the earth, and so it's resetting those ancient timelines, and you're utilizing this tri-wave frequency. So I hope that made sense. I tried to give the best explanation possible for such a quite a galactic experience that's upon us all.
Yes, thank you for that. Again, when we feel into it, I can hear a collective hallelujah. This is it. And so as we come into this energy and the global purge from what this energy will draw up, again, we're reminded to surrender and let it go. Anything else for our listeners that we should be doing during this time as we prepare for this great shift underway?
Yes, it's important to not play into low discordances. It's important to know that we're all on this process of initiation, and we're going to be presented with opportunities. Not so much, they might seem challenging or challenges, but they're truly opportunities of self-growth. And this may be in your personal relationships, or it might be in your relationships with the community. But it's just an opportunity to not project externally to you. Don't blame or push the finger, point the finger in this case to anyone else, and just really take ownership for your own life creation, and then also come into more, if you choose, a stewardship of what can you do in your life to literally set a path and set a pathway for others to be inspired by. It might be something simple, by just walking down the street and you see rubbish on the ground, picking that rubbish up. Maybe it's doing a little ceremony, giving back to the divine mother, our beautiful earth that gives us everything, just honoring her, spending a day in nature and just honoring her presence and the abundance that she gives, and just literally you could do a little ceremony of just honoring her by buying selected fruits and vegetables, and just giving a moment to give back into the land, and maybe go to the ocean and just honoring and speaking. Nature can hear us. We're this living, breathing organism. We're connected. We are exactly that nature, and we like to listen to this beautiful communication with loving words. So it's just communicating with nature and our surroundings, and and just honoring the process as well. Whatever comes to you, whatever opportunity comes to you, whether you perceive it as good or bad, it is actually perfect. And that's the biggest test. It's just accepting what was, accepting what is, and accepting what will be, and approaching that acceptance with absolute gratitude, with absolute gratefulness and appreciation to all experiences that you've had that brought you forth to this now moment, and all experiences that will create the future unfolding and this divine plan that's upon us. And we're going to go into a little bit of a rocky ship, because it needs to. All the old aspects of the Dark Age, the Kali Yuga, has to be purged out, has to be pulled out, because a lot of the control network just can't happen in the Golden Age that's to come, the Satya Yuga. This great Yuga that is upon us, it can't have any reference of these old dominating ways, these patriarchal ways, or these fallen masculine or suppressed feminine aspects within us. We have to allow ourselves the opportunity to not play into those old fears or shadows of separation, and just to take that personal responsibility and take each step as it comes, and be grounded within our being by knowing that whatever happens outside of us never has to shift us from within. And when we stay in that state of non-action, when we are centered and we are in alignment with universal law and principle, the whole heavens will support your every movement, because you are aligned the entire source field creation.
And with that, we are so elated from this conversation. My physical body is buzzing, and I'm newly inspired. And really, thank you, Akasha Sananda. The golden age is upon us. We honor the opportunity, and we surrender, and we accept. And we will, each of us in our own way, come into a stewardship that we can use to inspire others and honor our beloved Mother Earth and the Divine Mother. Akasha Sananda, thank you for this quantum conversation.
You're most welcome. It's been an absolute honor. Thank you.
Thank you for listening. If you've enjoyed this program, please share it with your friends and loved ones. And we thank you for shining your magnificent light and adding it to the world. This is when we love ourselves like no one else can. We leave you now with music from the universe. Music literally created by the universe, as musical notes were assigned to mathematical equations. The result is this beautiful music, available at acoustichealth.com. Namaste.